So the invitation is to find your way to your back. We're going to start there today. And if you wish to go straight into Shavasana mode and let the body completely stretch out on the ground, then let yourself do that. The other option to feel perhaps a little more supported is just to plant your feet to the ground, let the knees point up towards the ceiling, and then allow for the arms to fall softly off to the side. Give yourself a few moments of breath, of settling. And just start to feel into this precious place. The beautiful weight of your body as it drops towards the earth. And the earth as it rises to meet you, to support you in this restful state. Let your head rock side to side. Just a few passes. Doesn't need to be vigorous. And eventually come back to stillness. Purposely swallow. Let there be some space in your throat. And little by little, asking your body to get heavier and heavier. Becoming aware of your body in relationship to space. Noticing where your arms are resting. Noticing the sensation of your torso as it presses against the earth. Notice the heaviness of your hips. The length in your legs, whether they're stretched out or bent. The awareness of those long limbs. Notice the way your head is resting against the earth. Invite a beautiful deep breath to move through your body. Let it go with a sigh. And the invitation is to breathe into this heightened place of awareness. When we talk about this listening to the body, deep listening practices as they funnel in and out from the subtle places within us to unseen places beyond the walls we're existing in right now. And activating that deep listening comes with making the connection between your head and heart. There's an old indigenous saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the longest journey we make is from the head down into the heart. So as you're resting here, perhaps acknowledging the validity of that simple statement, see if you can plug in or open up the highway between your head and heart if it felt a little bit jagged or frayed. How can you move through this practice heartful, mindful? And always the open permission to do or not do any part of this practice. That too is that deep listening practice in action. Let's give a little bit of breath, a little bit of vibration to these little moments of awareness. We'll take a clearing breath in and let it go. And just letting yourself hum 3 times. Inhaling and humming. It's dropping yourself into the lingering sensations from your own little vibration practice. Maybe that's the first time you've felt a humming move and reach further into your body, simply because we are stretched out on the ground. From here, let your head roll to one shoulder, and then slowly pull back and roll over to the other shoulder. And just taking your time, maybe it's a breath connection that carries you through these movements. Inhaling to center, exhale to let the head roll off to a side. Doesn't have to be, but that could be your reality. And you'll let your head come to rest, finding stillness. Take your arms, see if you can stretch them up overhead so they're reaching along the floor above you, just within whatever range is accessible for your shoulders. Reach the fingers away, spread the fingers out wide, activate the arms. And then slowly let that go. Arms get heavy overhead. See about turning your head towards the left shoulder. Your next in-breath, bring the head back to center. And exhale, roll the head towards the right shoulder. And bring the head back to center. Invite your arms down to the side of your body wherever they can comfortably rest. And let's draw the knees in towards the chest. Invite your hands to come on top of the knees or maybe tuck in behind. we start to rock. And it's this inner listening that guides us. Maybe you want to do a really big rocking where you're testing your balance and tipping off to the side a bit further. Maybe you feel like you just need to stay closer to the center right now. Your practice, your body. And then we'll slowly invite those feet down to the ground. The knees are bent here. Taking your attention down to your heels. Push some weight into your heels, but let the toes be light, maybe even picking up the toes from the ground. And then relax that effort. So we're doing this little pushing back, the body slides on the ground a little bit, and then we relax. And you can do that again a few times here. And if you wanted to, you could explore increasing the pace at which you're doing this, and it becomes a little bit of a pulsing where you're sliding up and down on the floor. The pelvis is rocking, head's getting a little bit of a massage. And then we come to let that settle. Find stillness and notice what's going on in your body. That little bit of gliding, sliding practice activates the nervous system and kind of shakes things up. And then when we come to find the stillness, there's this interesting world of sensation that lingers, like you've opened up other floodgates. So while we're here on our backs, see if you can pick up just your big toes and push the rest of the toes into the mat. Just try, it doesn't have to happen. Just that intention, making the connection to your padas, your feet. Let that relax. See if you can push your big toes into the ground and lift the rest of the toes off the mat. And then relax. And we'll come back to picking up all the toes from the mat. Feel the heels connected. And let that go. We'll invite the arms to come close to the body and turn the palms down. And maybe walking your heels a little bit closer in towards your buttocks. So we're going to work with a flowing bridge pose here. And with your next exhale, follow that breath to emptiness. Feel the tailbones start to naturally lift. And then follow that upward motion. Push into the heels, squeeze into the glutes, lift the body up. Maybe pushing into your hands for some support. And then inhale, lower down vertebrae by vertebrae. And we'll do that again. Exhale, ride the wave, floating, lifting up through the torso, squeezing at the top, and then lower down. And making sure you're being guided by that head and heart connection. So if something doesn't feel quite right, maybe omit or try a slightly different variation. We'll do this bridge lift one more time in its foundational flow. And as you set down, Pause and feel. What feels awake and alive right now? What feels perhaps a little sluggish still? And then we come to add some layers to the flow. So the arms will move now with the lift and lower of the body. On your next exhale, pushing that weight into the heels. As the hips start to lift, the arms start to float up. And as your bridge pose peaks, the arms are tapping down to the ground above you. And then inhale, slowly we lower, arms come down, torso comes down. Let's do that 3 more times, just going with this wave of bridge. Slow and controlled, curious. And when you're done, your 3, come to pause. Feel once again. One more expression of this flowing bridge. So still the arms and the torso moving, but there's going to be 4 parts to the movement now. So we begin as we were just moving, exhaling, hips lift, arms lift, peaking that bridge pose. And then as you start to inhale and lower, just the hips start to find their way back to the mat. The arms stay reaching overhead. And then exhale, push into those heels, scoop up those hips, find the bridge with the arms extended. Inhale, arms come back down, torso drops back down, and that's the 4 pieces to the flow. So we're going to do that 3 more times. Inhale, everything lifts. Exhale, just the torso, the hips lower back down. Exhaling, lifting, hips come high. And inhale, arms and torso set back down. 2 more times here. Inhale, everything floats and lifts, or exhale, pardon me. Inhale, just the spine lowers, hips lower. Exhale, scoop those hips up. And then inhale, bring everything back down. Being curious, see if you can time the lifting and the lowering to occur at the same time between the hips and the arms. Last one, exhale, rise, everything floats up, arms, hips. Inhale, vertebrae by vertebrae, letting the torso come back to the mat. Exhale, scoop and lift up. And then inhaling, set everything back down to that starting point. Take the feet to the width of the mat and let your knees fall heavy in towards the center line. Pause here. Feel the aliveness where things might have been quite dormant at the beginning of practice. Honor those intuitive little movements and moments. Sweeping, clearing breath here. In through nose, out through mouth. Let's draw the knees towards the chest once again. Find some rocking. And either tipping yourself off to a side and helping your way up towards sitting, or maybe you feel like rocking and rolling along the length of your spine to sit up. Just finding your way gradually through to sitting. And we're going to come into a butterfly pose. So if you've got a little rear tilt to your pelvis, you'll want blanket wedged up underneath your sits bones. And the curiosity here as you listen to your body is, do you feel like you want your heels closer in towards your groin to stretch more of that inner thigh space? Or do you want to try and take the feet a bit further away and explore what that might feel like in your body? We're not going to be here for too long. But starting with that intuitive little check-in, what does your body need right now? And then going with that, seeing about curling and rounding and folding forward, taking a very passive fold here rather than very active with long spine and muscular effort. Just soft here. Body's recalibrating after being supine for quite a while. If it feels good to let your head turn side to side and maybe move up and down while you're here, then by all means, go for that. And for your next 3 breaths, see if when you exhale, you can let your body drop in a little bit further. Maybe it's an internal action that just invites you to drop, and then as you inhale, you pull out a little bit. So 3 attentive breaths. Exhaling, seeing if there's a bit more room to sink. And then inhale, let there be a soft spring back that happens. And after that little 3 breath exploration, allow yourself to come all the way out of the fold, scoop up the legs and just stretch them away from you. Maybe you feel like doing some little movements, resting back on the hands. Maybe you just want to take a rebound position as we would in a yin practice. How's that connection between your head and heart going right now? No judgments, no stories, just that little bit of curiosity. And then we'll come to take our legs wider here. Within your own range of comfort for today. You can keep the legs relaxed if that feels supportive. If you're more content to flex into the feet and activate the legs, then do that. So really, really, really listening to your body. And we're just going to do this little bit of a twisting motion from one side to the other. So we'll start by sliding down the right leg, feeling this little stretch and opening start to happen through the left side waist. And from here, if it's okay for the shoulder, reach up and over with that left arm for a moment, stretching over towards your right leg. And with an exhale, sweep that left hand down through the center of your space, all the way over towards the left leg. And just let yourself pause here. Get that little stretch and achy sensation. Space. Just inviting space. Again, if it's okay to let the right arm reach up and over towards those left toes for a moment, let that happen. Otherwise, the arm stays close to the body. And then we sweep down with the right arm, swishing over to the right side. And then we're just going to seesaw. So if you're okay with this reach of the arm, that's where you'll end up, or it's just a soft version in the front. And we exhale, travel through the center, roll and open, however you're coming at this. To the left side, reach down and come over to the right. What feels good? And you'll allow yourself to go through this little bit of a seesaw twisting motion a couple more times. Ending when you're reaching over to the left side, and then let everything come to center. Fold here for a moment. And then we'll let that go little by little, pulling the body up to center. Scoop up your legs. Come back to that place where everything has a little bit of space to recalibrate and maybe a little bit of movement. Maybe you're really enjoying those little pockets of stillness in between. So just doing what your body needs. And then we'll come to bring ourselves over to all fours, creating that tabletop, padding up the knees if you need to with your blanket. Some days the knees are hypersensitive, other days they're quite fine. I'm gonna give my Rice Krispie knees a little bit of a break this morning. That's what they sound like when I climb stairs some days. It's ridiculous. So from tabletop, fanning out those fingers nice and wide, just feeling your connection to ground, noticing how you're doing energetically now that we're face first towards the ground from this tabletop perspective rather than being face up towards the sky. Hone in on the breath to begin with. Just feel how those inhales and exhales are moving through your body. Noticing where the breath is most dominant for you. Is it in the expansion and contraction of your ribs? Is it more the movement of the belly? Maybe it's the sensation of air as it passes through the nostrils. And from here, let's give way to just a few rounds of cow and cat. As you inhale, let that belly drop, crown and tail float. And exhale, belly button towards the spine, round everything out. And just work your way back and forth through this little flexion of the spine. Relax your face, your jaw. And one more time here. Come back to your flat back. If the wrists are tender, you can always come to loose fist or make a little kickstand with your thumb and your first knuckle. Let's take the right leg out, tuck our toes underneath and put a little bit of pressure, a little bit of backward momentum. And you could do a little bit of a pulsing in and out here, similar to that sliding when we were on our backs. But if you'd prefer to stay stable, then just push weight back through the foot into the heel and stay there. So it's really up to you. And then we'll release that right leg, bend into the knee, and rather than planting it back underneath you, let's just kick that heel up towards the ceiling. Keep the knee pointing towards the ground, hips pointing towards the ground. We'll do a little external rotation. Take the knee out to the side, and then bring the knee towards the elbow. Now the right leg lands back on the mat. Pause there. Let's take a break from the wrists, come to high kneeling. You could wiggle through your fingers, roll through your wrists. And while you're here, just taking the left hand, letting it grab hold of the right wrist and pull down. Drop your left ear off towards the left shoulder. Ooh. Hopefully that gives you the same kind of sensation that I just got, a deep release there. Try wiggling the fingers of that right hand. See what happens while you're in this deeper release for your neck and your shoulders. And then we'll let that go, arms down to the side, chin to the chest. Take a clearing breath here before we come back to tabletop. Lowering down, find your way back to hands and knees, however that is supportive for you. Take that left leg out, tuck the toes underneath. We're waking up that leg. And maybe it's a little bit of that pulsing in and out here, back and forth. Maybe it's more of that stable version of this extension that works for you. Giving ourselves one more moment here with this left leg extended. And then you'll slowly start to release, bend into that left knee. It doesn't quite hit the ground. We're going to flex into the foot and take the foot up towards the ceiling, keeping the hips level. Feeling that little wake up in the core and the legs. And then we find that external rotation. Take the knee out to the side. Bring the knee towards the elbow. And set it down. Let's come back to that high kneeling. Wiggle through the fingers, roll through the wrists. And now the right wrist grabs hold of the left one. You draw down, opening across the chest. Drop the left ear over towards the left shoulder. Invite the left ear to now find the right shoulder and then start to wiggle through your fingers of that left hand. See what happens. And then we'll let that go, chin to chest, arms release from behind your body. So while we're kneeling here, if you haven't already patted up your knees, you might want to do so. Just a little bit of gate pose. So taking that left leg out to the side. If it's possible, root into that foot, plant it firmly to the ground. Otherwise, just pushing to the instep for anchoring. So seeing what's possible for you here. And we're just going to slide that left arm down the leg, tuck the right hand into the low back. So we're gently pulling back through the shoulder, keeping the chest facing forward. Breathing here. If it feels better to let your head turn down towards that left leg, let that happen. And then we'll inhale, come up, and we're going to switch. Bring the left leg under, stretch the right leg long, tall spine. Tuck that left hand into the low back and slow and steady slide down off to the right side, just as far as you can go. Again, that inner listening. Where's that tipping point where you're on the verge of maybe going too far? Can you hang out just a bit back of that edge line? And again, maybe the gaze turns down towards that right side. And slowly come up. Bring the knee back underneath. Plant the hands. And let's tuck the toes. We'll just find downward facing dog here for a moment. With the exhale, follow the breath towards empty. Feel the contraction sneak into your body. And then come to hover the knees. Stretch out the legs. And let's walk the dog here. From here, lower the knees back down to the mat. Send the hips towards the heels, child's pose. So this will be our little inversion play, if you will. We're going to go through that little sequence 3 more times where we go down dog to tabletop to child's. Letting that sink in. Remembering to listen to your body, always the option to do or not do. As you're ready, come through tabletop with an inhale, tuck the toes, start to breathe out, follow that contraction, hover the hips high, downward facing dog. Inhale back to the knees, exhale into child's. We've got that 2 more times if you're going through this sequence. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale, tuck those toes, hover into that downward facing dog, all the way to the emptiness of the breath. Inhale, knees find the earth, and exhale, hips to heels, child's pose. One last time, if you're still with me. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale, toes lift into that down dog. Inhale, come through, knees to the earth. Maybe a bit of a cow pose, let the crown and the tail float. And then sink yourself back into child's pose. Maybe the legs get wider. Just let yourself sink in. Find your version of child's pose that is supportive. One more breath here. Let's come to lift ourselves up, and we'll come to sit ourselves down. So using blanket or other supports, place it underneath your sits bones. So whether you need it or not, try doing this seated twist with that little bit of support underneath you. So we're going to stretch the left leg long, flex into the foot. So we're really activating the back of the leg for a moment. And then we're going to take the bent right knee, plant that foot to the ground, encouraging the spine to stay sitting up tall. This is where that blanket underneath your butt can be really, really helpful, just facilitating that length in your body. So the left leg is engaged, the foot is flexed, and we're using the right hand or right arm just to bring that right knee more towards the midline here. The next layer to this is to take that left hand, or maybe the left elbow, maybe you can wrap around a bit further than I can today. Left hand to the outside of the right knee, so you're still inviting that knee towards the midline here. And then we're going to take that right hand behind. So maybe you do a stretch up and reach. Maybe it's just a lower wraparound if the shoulders feel tricky. Keep your spine tall. As you exhale, try to squeeze that leg towards the midline a little bit more. And then we'll slowly release the effort. Let the right knee fall open out to the side. Let the left leg relax. And we'll take a twist the other way around. Right hand to the outside of the left thigh, left hand behind. Nice and tall. And come to release. And we'll switch things up. So coming to extend your right leg, bend into the left knee. And we start with that more active version. So flexing into the foot of that right leg. Using your left hand or left forearm, elbow to just start to activate and bring that knee towards center. You might even feel a little bit of an achy stretch down through the hip. And then we'll make this a little more involved, taking the right hand to the outside of that left knee, really drawing towards your midline, and then taking that left arm behind. Maybe you do that big sweep. Maybe it's more of a low reach around, sitting up tall. Feel the exhale hug in towards the spine, allowing for maybe a bit more rotation while you're here. Getting a nice little massage for those internal organs. One more breath here. Releasing out of that, allow the left leg to fall open to the side. You can relax the right one if you'd like. We take our twist the other way around. Left hand to the outside of the right thigh, right hand behind. Still creating length in the spine. Just a couple of breaths here as you're twisting in. And let that go, come back to center. And we'll lower ourselves down onto our backs one more time. So you may wish to have blanket folded or rolled and ready to tuck underneath your knees for final Shavasana. Coming down onto our backs, feet to the earth. So that lovely supported position. Pause there. Just come to notice once again. How is that little journey between head and heart going? Hopefully there's a little bit of joy from the curiosity and the willingness to rewire or perhaps carve out deeper connections. From here, a little bit of movement, some windshield wipers, letting those bent knees drop off to a side and then switch to fall to the other side. And come back to stillness. Let's invite the left knee in towards the chest. Wrap the hands around that shin or maybe tuck them in behind the knee. And as you exhale, squeeze that leg tighter towards your torso. Inhale, let it pull back. Exhale, squeeze. You'll just go through this tense and release a few more times. And the next time that you release and you're just gently supporting that leg, take the left hand to the top of the knee and just draw a few circles here. A few passes in one direction and then see if you can change it up. Pausing, invite your left heel to find the right thigh. So figure 4. Take a breath there. Maybe that's enough for your system and that's where you'll stay. Or maybe it's disagreeable in its entirety and you just don't bother. And the option here is to reach for that left foot with your right hand and invite that left heel to come towards your right hip point and just deepen into the stretch and pull of your left hip. And then we'll let that go. Left foot finds its way back to the floor. And while that side's integrating, we'll invite the right knee towards the chest, interlace the hands either on top of the shin or behind the knee. Exhale, squeeze. Inhale, let it release. Just keeping with this tense and release motion a few more times. And when you release that last time, right hand stays with the knee and you'll draw your circles a few times in one direction and then play with going around the other way. Curious about the movement in your hips. And coming back to center, we'll invite that right ankle to find the left thigh, starting with the figure 4. Always the option to do or not do, listening to your body. If you're in the figure 4 and you wish to explore that deeper movement, bring that right foot towards the left hip bone and let that right knee fall away, maybe even push it away slightly. And just a couple of breaths here. And gently releasing, unwinding that right leg. Come back to feet on the ground. The arms reach away from you. Do that little inventory from head to toe. Notice how you're doing, what little messages from your inner resources are coming to the surface. What would be most suitable for you as a resting pose right now? Could be staying exactly as you are. Maybe it's stretching those legs long and tucking blanket underneath knees. Maybe you feel like you need to hug the ground and you want to turn over and rest on your abdomen for a little while. Find what works for you in the honoring of your body, your heart, your mind. And let everything else go. Come to give yourself the sweet and important permission to be here and be still. For those deeper roots of practice to begin to reach. Just this. The longest journey you'll ever make is from the head down into the heart. From your place of inner knowing, of inner wisdom, letting that awakened heart guide you through your own little movement process as you start to wake yourself up, as you gradually find your way back towards sitting. And just taking a moment to breathe into the lingerings of this practice. And doing what feels most authentic for you as a gesture of bringing practice to a close. Maybe it's hands at the heart on Jali Mudra. Maybe it's just a loving embrace unto yourself. Find gratitude for the courage and the willingness that it took for you to find your way to the mat practice today. And offer gratitude and love to all the puzzle pieces that fell into place to allow us to connect and share practice today. Single Om to close this practice. Clearing breath in. Let it go. Finding sound. Om. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste.